Good evening, and welcome to another scene in the living legend of the Five Rings. On this scene, we have a small gathering of crab samurai that has been called by one Hitagoru. There hasn't really been much pomp or circumstance attached to this invitation. A messenger brings a sealed note for both of you to read, and in typical Hita fashion, it is not really a request. It is more of a come right away sort of deal. He's not really asking you, he's telling you. So, with that, you can make of that what you will.
Yeah, Susumu will respond right away. Head to wherever the appointed meeting place is.
Likewise with Sojiro. However, unfortunately, he is not armored. Um, he's doing his best.
So, the meeting has been called at a small residence in the residential area of Kutankuro, where the Great Clan Samurai have taken up various houses to reside in while they're performing their duties for the crow. And interestingly enough, it would appear by all indication that some unfortunate crow samurai have been forced to give up their residences for you much more esteemed samurai. But this particular place is one of many very utilitarian um, houses, sort of in the on the edge, uh, in the more the less affluent area. Um, you have passed some very well prettied up residences that you can only assume to be Crane long ago, and everything has gotten slightly worse the further you go down, to where these last several residences are almost on the edge of where the Hayman begin to the merchants and such take up their residences, and you are let in with not much in the way of fanfare. It appears that there is a single servant who is clearly trained in Crablands, very out of the way, very plain, quiet, doesn't speak at all, and allows you into the residence. The place itself is pretty Spartan. It is exactly what both of you would expect in a place like this for a crab. And you are led into a receiving room in which there is this gentleman along with a female with her face painted in the ways of the Kuni. And both of them stand as you enter briskly, as though that there's a lot of business. There's not a whole lot of time for this formality nonsense. But with all due respect.
um, Susumu will offer a slight bow of the head. You called for us.
Guru nods very briskly. For her part, the Kuni doesn't seem to offer any sort of reply, whether it be a bow or a nod. She just stands there and has a slow grin sort of creeping over her features. And she takes a long glance at Sojiro.
He offers a similar nod of respect, but ultimately says nothing.
Guru looks between the two of you and says, "Yes, it would seem we have much to discuss. Please sit." And he himself does. There are some pillows laid out. They are drab and not particularly comfortable looking, but they will do the job.
Mm-hmm. Susumu will take a seat.
Sojiro goes through the ritual of taking his daisho off of his hip and placing it very gently in his lap as he sits.
I've heard tell of your encounter in the woods.
Susumu nods.
But you've been light on the details. For good reason, I assume.
I have not gone shouting from the mountaintops what transpired, no. I have discussed the matter with another Shugenja, one of the Unicorn clan, because I suspected the events that she told me about might be connected.
How are you faring, brother? He says, looking at Sojiro.
As well, I haven't been particularly chatty about events in the forest. I've spent my time recovering and looking for a fine blacksmith.
A rarity, I'm sure, in these lands. Nothing like back home.
I'm afraid not.
And it looks like he's going to speak, but before he does, the woman pipes up and says, "Maybe you can enlighten us as to what transpired in the forest from clanmate to clanmate."
Susumu nods. Hida-san and others were in the forest prior, and they encountered some bandits who displayed some very strange behavior. When they came to me and told me of this knowledge and said that they dispatched of the bandits, I asked them where the bodies were, and they said they were still in the forest, and that made me nervous. I'm sure you can understand.
Indeed.
So, I advised that they fetch the Etta, and then we would go retrieve the bodies and make sure they were properly disposed of, so as not to invite the forces of Jigoku upon us. When we arrived, the bodies were not there, and then we were besieged by what I can only assume to be an Oni.
And you survived?
Hida-san lived up to the proud name of his family. He faced the beast head on, assessed its strengths, and warned the rest of us. The beast was quick and began picking off the Etta one by one, and so I petitioned the kami to strike out against it with jade. It tore at Hida-san here. It tore at Daidoji-san and Bayushi-san. And I struck it again, and upon the second strike, it roared. And it called upon the kami itself to create a wall of fire. And then it ran.
And you're certain this beast was an Oni?
Certain, no. But I cannot fathom what else it might be.
And you've done all due rituals for our poor Hida-san here.
OOC Andrew.
In basically ensuring that there's no taint.
Oh. I have not been able to see to Hida-san's wounds. It appears he convalesced without my assistance. Though, for occasions, and he reaches into his sleeve and produces a piece of jade.
There's almost a flinch from Goru when you produce the jade. Almost. His eyes snap to it, but he doesn't really betray any other emotion about it one way or the other. Well, I suppose it can't be helped then. I wonder, though, have you heard tell of very many Oni able to cajole the kami?
None.
It's a strange trait.
And it is why I cannot be certain that what I saw was one.
Have you considered any other possibilities?
I'm sure the land of Rokugan is filled with many oddities and strange things. But what we Kuni know are the enemy.
You're correct, of course. Whatever it is, whether it be Oni or not, should be dealt with directly. But a creature of this nature that can beseech the kami, it's a dangerous foe indeed. It's a wonder you survived.
As Susuma-san put very kindly, that night I got to experience precisely how long Amaru is.
As is your duty.
There is another aspect of this that I wish not to get lost.
The bodies.
Hida-san, you are more aware of the situation than I. Could you please fill in the details as to the crow samurai that we encountered in the Red Kitsune?
Yes, there was when some of the Great Clan samurai, Susumu here as well, and myself, and in their company, came to meet. On our way out to deal with the dead bodies in the Shinneman Forest, we witnessed a familiar face. A man bearing the same face as one of those dead bodies in the forest. Claimed to know nothing, he bore no taint, as Susumu-san was able to assess.
And you're certain?
The jade did not sting his skin upon contact.
This man's face was precisely like one of theirs.
If he bears no taint, if this is indeed a dead man, I'm afraid I don't know of many explanations. The Walking Dead are, well, you know.
There is potential worry for deceivers.
I've known Oni that can possess such abilities, but none that do not possess taint.
There have been reports of Panagalin in this area. They were dispatched, but they proved very, very difficult to detect. However, this gentleman, it was in the evening, and his head was not floating about, so...
No, I suspect that that is not the cause. Strange indeed, but perhaps it is a coincidence. A brother, perhaps.
I asked. He claimed to have no brothers.
Perhaps he's merely ashamed of him and wants no connection with one.
Andrew, is that the Kuni or the Hida speaking?
The Kuni.
Kuni-san, if I may, you seem rather at ease when the threat of a doppelganger in our presence is quite a possibility.
There are many strange things in this place. I do not wish to be overly dramatic before all of the more mundane explanations have been sussed out.
He nods. And refresh my memory, the Crow Samurai had a scar, right?
Yes.
Susumu looks over to Sojiro. What are the marks on his face?
Specifically one Here. And he notes with his finger outlines where the scar was. They bore the same mark.
Perhaps there is some strange crow custom where twin sons ritually scar their own faces.
I see your point. Have you any ideas to explain it then?
Nothing concrete. Unless what was encountered in the forest was some form of shapeshifter. I say we, I meant them.
But you've seen none like the others, then, Hida-san? Simply this one man.
And he he nods. Only the one. The company he took at the Red Kitsune did not resemble those of the fallen compatriots of the man in the forest.
Strange indeed. Troubling.
We could call the Crow Samurai together. Perhaps Hida-san, Daidoji-san, and Bayushi-san could examine. Perhaps another face would jog their memory.
Perhaps. It would be rather brazen, though. Perhaps even insulting.
Then perhaps they should know that Kuni Susumu will insult them to no end.
She smiles at that. Well, I wish you all of the luck in that regard. I do hear that their de facto leader is somewhat prideful.
Since coming here, all I have encountered is pride and corruption. It will be no different.
As you say. It is a plan as sound as the carpenter wall.
He offers a slight bow at the mention of the wall.
Goro sort of clears his throat and says, "Speaking of which, Sojiro-san, have you found any jade?
I have not.
Whenever you say that, he just sort of instinctively like lashes out and slams his fist on the table between all of them. This is the real reason we're here. Not all of these monkey shines. Our people are dying on the wall. If there is any jade here, it must be found.
Hida-san, are there reports of where some may have been found in the Shinneman Forest? A location, perhaps?
No. However, the body that was carrying the jade bore distinctive markings of this clan. And if I must, I'll wring every one of their necks until they tell me where it is. These crow wander around. Oh, so polite. Bearing all the insult of their situation. Outwardly model samurai, but hiding something. And if it's a stockpile of jade, I'll kill all of them to get it.
Some might see that as insulting, Hida-san.
I will bear the insult of the entire empire if it saves our people.
You'll bow to that.
Sojiro will as well. Without a sense of direction, there is much of the Shinneman Forest to explore.
Then perhaps you need to find a direction.
Yes, Guru-san.
Do you know anyone who knows the forest?
We met someone in it. Aside from that individual, there's only the Bayushi-san cartographer.
Who have you met in the forest?
A woman, dark hair. Says she lives in the forest. There are people that do. That the forest plays tricks on the mind. We'd seen it firsthand in the bodies we created. Men who do not listen to reason. And who clearly face death. A very needless death. And sought precisely that. Somehow this woman, her mind did not appear harmed or changed.
then perhaps that is a soul that you should seek.
Yes, Guru-san.
If there are secrets to this force, they must be uncovered. We don't have a great deal of time. Very rarely in our history have there been so many responsibilities placed on so few of us.
If I may, Guru-san, the bag marking the clan bearing, was that of the crow?
There were no Muns to confirm it, merely a distinctive style.
Mm.
The Hiranor are certain that this is where this person came from.
You see, the crow samurai have spoken very few, if any, words to myself personally. I've seen them watching in silence from a distance ever since we've arrived.
I'm willing to bet that they will lose such inhibitions when a Tetsubo strikes their knee.
Sadly, I'll need to find a blacksmith first. When I struck the creature in the woods, be it Oni or something else, did nothing. Only cracked my Tetsubo and tore my armor asunder.
I have friends among the Oski. Perhaps I can have more brought to you.
I'm in your debt, Guru-san. If perhaps there is a blacksmith, the Tetsubo that was cracked belonged to my late father.
I do not recommend you throw away your gear merely to find replacements until such a time as you can repair your armor and your weapon.
Yes, Guru-san.
Very well then. I shall begin my search among the crow. I assume, Susumu-san, that you are going to investigate the whereabouts of this creature.
Sojiro looks to Susumu.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Goru asks that if Susumu is going to investigate the whereabouts of this creature and its nature.
And only beyond the wall is the only thing I have been able to think about in every waking moment.
And we shall destroy it when the time is right.
And for that, we need Jade.
Indeed. Sojiro and I will see to it.
Sojiro nods. Hopefully, with a sense of direction, we can shorten the search area. I have my hopes that if it were to come from the north, perhaps we could use Kamina Village as a midway to cover more area.
Perhaps so. It is your specialty after all, Sojiro. I am certain that whatever course of action you find to be most effective will be the most effective option.
He bows his head gratefully.
Very well then. If there's nothing else,
Susumu begins to stand up.
Goru does as well.
As will Sojiro at that point.
And Juko. I thank you all for coming.
It was good to find myself recentered.
We all of us, occasionally need realignment.
And I will see to this matter with the crow. And he offers a slight bow and then leaves.
Juko moves to follow you.
Okay.
And so if they are able to step outside, Juko sort of slips her arms into her sleeves and says, Susumu-san.
Yes, Juku-san?
I'm not sure how familiar you are with this area in the Shinomen Forest. It was something of a interest of mine. I was stationed far in the north of Crablands, and such matters were of a vaguely more impactful resonance to us up there.
Resonance, you say?
I have a very vague piece of information, a scrap, that you might find useful in these endeavors.
His head tilts to one side and He leans forward just slightly towards her.
She removes a hand from her sleeve, and there's a small piece of paper, sort of folded neatly. It looks quite old by the yellowing of the parchment.
May I?
Absolutely. She offers it to you.
He takes it and carefully unfolds it.
It's in a very old script of Rokugani, a style that you're not very used to reading, except in dealing with very old texts. And the penmanship is distinctly crab. And as you look it over, she sort of saves you the need to read out, holding it up to lantern light,
Right.
and says, "There was an explorer, Haruma, who led an expedition into the southern reaches of the Shinomen Forest. An expedition that took many days and weeks. He was the only one that returned, as is perhaps typical of such endeavors. His writings seem to indicate a mire, a place of great evil, a wound from Jigoku itself, protected by some sort of foul barrier. Unfortunately, the Shugenja that accompanied him were either dead or missing at that point, and were not able to examine it in great detail. It is known to us, but well, it's dangerous.
We know of its location.
But we know nothing else.
Is it very deep in there?
Truthfully, the reason why it is in my possession is not because it is something that is widely accepted or believed, merely the ravings of a madman.
Few want to accept the truth in madness.
But some of us must curate it nonetheless.
He folds the paper back up and hands it back to her.
No. Feel free to keep it.
He
It is all that I have on this particular topic. Truth be told, it's quite obscure. And there's not very much left of this poor man's recollections.
He bows and it disappears within his sleeves.
When I heard of strange encounters in the forest and the like, it sprung to mind that it may be something you might find interesting.
And I do.
She bows.
I will examine this further and see if there is any further information to be gleaned. And then perhaps another expedition can be arranged.
Perhaps. Perhaps with more expendable assets. Or perhaps with more dependable assets.
I prefer a mixture of both. But we shall see what is available to us. Without the Tears of Amaterasu, any action against the forces within the forest is doomed to failure.
We may all be doomed here. This may well be the edge of the world. After all, the crab does have a use away from the wall, but not many uses.
Then let wherever we stand be a wall.
As you say. Good luck, brother.
He bows once more and then turns to leave.
He just stands there and watches you leave.
Whoop.
Meanwhile, Goru will offer Sojiro a drink.
He gladly accepts.
And with that, I think we can end the scene. Thank you, players, for playing. Watch us for watching.